Welcome back to the 2015 first ever Premier Challenge here in Northern California, San Bruno Premier Challenge kickoff. We are now in the finals with Alex O, your national champion, Evan Falco, versus DarkAssassin, Anthony J from SoCal. So we kind of got a NorCal versus SoCal thing going on right now as we go into team preview. Off screen, you have Alex with Amoonguss, Bisharp, Kangaskhan, Meowstic, Heat Rotom, and Salamence. On screen, you can see DarkAssassin team, Manectric, Hydreigon, Gyarados, Tyranitar, Azumarill, and Amoonguss. Interesting. DarkAssassin, of course, your Nugget Bridge major champion, running a pretty similar team. You know, that Manectric and that Azumarill with that Amoonguss, proving such a good combo. You know, that Lightning Rod ability going to be able to draw away any electric type attack, so that Heat Rotom is going to be pretty ineffective against trying to stop this setup. Azumarill can easily get up belly drums if it really wanted to, and if, you know, they try another way to stop that Azumarill, then that Amoonguss will be able to come in and stop that belly jump from coming out too. And of course, if memory serves me right, that's going to be a Dragon Dance Tyranitar. Of course, Dragon Dance Tyranitar paired up with an Amoonguss. You know, Amoonguss covers Tyranitar's weaknesses pretty well. So a lot of chance for DarkAssassin to set up if you really wanted to. And, you know, going to be interesting to see how these two players play. Alex, of course, you know, a smart player, gonna try to set up that Kangaskhan to sweep all of Anthony's team. So gonna be close, and you know, it's gonna come down to both these players and doing their best judgment to see if they can set up and easily pick up the win from there after getting set up. Of course, Gyarados also in team preview we see providing a lot of support. You know, it also gets Dragon Dance. It can Mega Evolve and fire off, you know, Mold Breaker, Earthquakes, which does a lot to Rotom, which Gyarados do not enjoy facing off against. As we are now underway here in the finals of the San Bruno Premier Challenge. Hydreigon and Amoonguss leads for Anthony, and Meowstic and Amoonguss leads for Alex O. Both Pokemon on Alex's side more known to be supporting roles, not really much offense going on Aloza's side, whereas Anthony on the other side does have a support Pokemon in that Amoonguss, and Hydreigon going to be able to fire off very powerful attacks as well. Amoonguss is going to switch out this turn, does not want to stay in against Meowstic, probably fearing a safeguard of some sort coming up from that Meowstic, as Tyranitar decides to come in, going to set off the Sandstorm, and, you know, there it is, the safeguard from Meowstic can prevent any sort of statusing moves onto the Aloza's side, as the Dark Pulse from Hydreigon gonna go instantly off onto the Meowstic and pick up the easy knockout. Very effective, super effective, as Amoonguss able to fire off a Spore onto the Hydreigon, as sand damage gonna chip away at Hydreigon and Amoonguss. So I don't know how I feel about that, you know, going down so early, 4-3 in the finals here. Of course, you know, a lot of information could be gained from this for later games, as Kangaskhan decides to show up, and Kangaskhan, you know, going to be able to set up pretty easily against both these Pokemon. Amoonguss can easily Rage Powder away anything, as Hydreigon decides to switch out this turn. Going to go back into that Amoonguss, and where is Kangaskhan going to go? Where is he going to go with this turn? Is he going to try to set up Power Punches? But of course, Tyranitar can easily protect if it does try to target that Tyranitar. So Tyranitar does protect, scared of possible chance for Agloza's Kangaskhan to set up Power Punches. And Agloza decides to Power Punch his own Amoonguss. Risky move, but pays off, as he gets an easy +2 boost on that not very effective Amoonguss. We saw Agloza clinch a victory a couple rounds ago with his own Power Punch onto his own Salamence, so right now setting up +2 against DarkAssassin's team, and that is one thing that Agloza loves seeing, easily just set up against against the opponent. DarkAssassin thought he was pretty safe, but Agloza read through that, so right now, pretty good position for Agloza to come in and sweep. Of course, Amoongu's going to try to stop that. Amoongu's very bulky and can Rage of Powder away power punches from Tyranitar as Tyranitar decides to set up if it really wanted to. So it's going to be pretty close, you know. I mean, both player sides are right now trying to set up against each other. As Kangaskhan going to go for the power punch, going to hit the Tyranitar, and going to do a good amount of damage. Super effective. Only gets one attack boost, I believe, as Tyranitar gets knocked out from one power punch, as Amoongu's going to fire off a Spore into the Amoongu's Protect. Wouldn't even affect it anyways. So really good position right now for Agloza. He is currently at +3 Kangaskhan, and +3 Kangaskhan is not exactly what you want to face off against. And that Amoongus cannot Spore into the Kangaskhan because of the safeguard that was set up by Meowstic on the first turn. So right now, going to go into Gyarados on DarkAssassin side, going to fire off an Intimidate, bring that Kangaskhan back down to a somewhat more manageable +2 attack, but at the same time, you know, Kangaskhan's still at +2, it's a truck, and it's ready to go. Gyarados not really enjoying facing off against Kangaskhan, or not enjoy facing off against Amoongus too much. A Waterfall is its main form of attack, and not going to be able to do too much damage to that Amoongus, as Kangaskhan fires off that +2 return into the Amoongus and easily knocks it out, only needing one hit, as Gyarados going to go for the Waterfall, going to go straight into that Kangaskhan. So that is going to be a Safety Goggles Kangaskhan. No, sorry, that's not Safety Goggles Kangaskhan. I thought that Amoongus had Spored, but Amoongus going to fire off the Spore instead. So right now, it's going to be Hydreigon and Gyarados versus Kangaskhan and Amoongus. And Kangaskhan survives with one hit point after the Sandstorm, so Kangaskhan's still going to be able to fire off one more attack. We still haven't seen what DarkAssassin's Mega was. It could either be the Tyranitar or it could even be the Gyarados, as Hydreigon comes in. Both Pokemon asleep right now, so going to be able to fire off one more return and knock something out if he really wanted to. It kind of comes down to what he has in back. Kangaskhan going to go for the return, going to target down the Hydreigon and easily pick up the knockout in one hit. So Gyarados versus what's going to be Amoongus after this round. After this turn, Giga Drain from Amoongus is going to come off onto the Gyarados and do a good 25% of damage to it. And Sandstorm actually subsides, so I totally forgot about that. The Sandstorm actually subsides, so Kangaskhan does survive this turn and going to be able to easily pick up the knockout this turn. The match was forfeited. DarkAssassin is going to drop 0-1. So Agloza moves on to he moves on to 1-0. Really key that he survived that last Sandstorm. I totally forgot about that. And now it's back to the drawing board for both players, mostly Anthony. Agloza showing off exactly how gutsy he is, willing to power punch his own Amoongus when he easily could have power punched other things if he really wanted to. So Anthony's going to be a bit more careful about what he decides to do. You know, he needs to start going more on the aggressor side. Needs to be going more on the aggressor side. Agloza, of course, you know, shutting down whatever Anthony had planned. You know, Amoongus probably wanted to Spore a couple turns, but the safeguard from Meowstic from the first turn paid off so well. Anthony needs to figure out ways to be able to set up, you know, since he didn't bring Magic that turn, and the Pokemon he brought was Gyarados, you know. Gyarados did not Mega Evolve that turn, so not even sure where his Mega is exactly. Could be Tyranitar, could be Gyarados, could be... I know for sure it's Manectric, so... Gonna be interesting to see what Anthony decides to do to try to adjust right now, because his back is really against the wall. He needs to definitely go on the offense right here. Probably set up, you know. Didn't even bother bringing a Zoom Roll the important thing for Anthony to do is just keep that Kangaskhan in check. And his best Kangaskhan counter right now is probably going to be that Amoonguss. Or, if he can, most likely bring Manectric and that Gyarados to continue firing off, intimidate support, and just not allow that Kangaskhan to pick up momentum. Getting underway right now. Both players ready to go. Agloza going to be content with sending out the exact same leads, Meowstic and Amoonguss, as Anthony going to make a bit of an adjustment, sending out Hydreigon and Tyranitar. So we know for a fact that that Hydreigon might be gunning for that Meowstic. Last game, it immediately went for that Meowstic. A bit more offensive side on Anthony's side with that Tyranitar coming in instead of that Amoonguss. Not exactly sure if Meowstic wants to stay in and set up a safeguard. Not really a need to. Not even sure if Anthony has a Amoonguss in the back. However, setting up safeguard would be able to set up Kangaskhan getting swaggered for instant boost right off the bat. We saw that +1. We saw that +2 power punch last game was easily able to knock out that Tyranitar. So we'll just have to see exactly what happens here. Meowstic going to go with Thunder Wave, going to start slowing down DarkAssassin's team. Very smart move right there, as Tyranitar does get paralyzed. Does Tyranitar have an item? Yes, Tyranitar does have the Lumberry to prevent paralysis or any sort of statusing moves, as Hydreigon going to fire off a Draco Meteor. Going to do a good amount of damage to that Amoonguss, but Amoonguss hangs on, so Tyranitar going to go for the Dragon Dance, set up the Dragon Dance, and start kind of setting up and go on the offensive right now, as Amoonguss still gets the move and fires off a Spore, gonna land on that Hydreigon. So right now that Hydreigon's gonna be paralyzed, or sleeping, just like last game. We saw that Hydreigon sleeping was a very unfortunate move. This turn right now, Meowstic can still fire off the Thunder Wave onto that Tyranitar, slow it down. +1 Tyranitar is not something to joke around with. It's very threatening, +1/+1 attack and speed, if it has Rock Slide, you're most likely going to be flinching a few turns that could be critical later on. So, right now, most likely, Meowstic going to have some sort of role in this support to try to weaken that Tyranitar. We saw earlier that Tyranitar does have Charm, so we're just going to see what happens right now, as DarkAssassin going to send in the Amoonguss, going to try to draw away any sort of support, really. Tyranitar most likely protecting this turn with that switch into Amoonguss. As Salmons comes in, we know that Salmons is Choice Scarfed. Such a popular item on Salmons this year, as Tyranitar does protect himself this turn, so not wanting to get paralyzed of any sort. As Meowstic does set up the safeguard, so Meowstic setting up his own team to open up options for Swagger shenanigans. Can either Swagger his own team or Swagger the opposing team to try to prevent any sort of movement on DarkAssassin's side. Amoonguss clearly was sent in to try to draw away anything, whether it's a Charm, Thunder Wave, or Swagger from that Tyranitar. And now Agloza needs to figure out a way to use this Salmons, the safeguard, to try to pick up some knockouts. Tyranitar, of course, right now at +1/+1 each in attack and speed. Going to be able to threaten a lot of things on the field, but that Choice Scarf Salmon is still going to be able to threaten that Tyranitar as well. We see that the Lumberry on Tyranitar means that it is actually not going to be a Mega Tyranitar, so I have reason to believe that Gyarados might be the Mega on his team if he does bring that Gyarados again, or DarkAssassin's just playing with no Mega, and, sometimes you just have to do that. You look at the team preview, and it's unfortunate that you don't decide to bring a Mega, but sometimes it just has to happen. So Salamence right now, after firing off that Intimidate onto that Tyranitar, going to be content on switching out again to the Amoonguss. And Rage Powder going to come out to prevent any sort of setup move, as Meowstic going to go for the Swagger onto the Amoonguss. And now Amoonguss is going to struggle, going to have to go through confusion checks to see if it can actually move each turn. Smart move right there from Alex, kind of reading into that easy Rage Powder slot right there. And, you know, Tyranitar going to go for another Dragon Dance, going to get up its speed to +2, and now its attack is going to be at +1 after the Intimidate. As Amoonguss now still healing back its health, currently 4-on-4 with a Sleeping Hydreigon in back. And it's going to come down to what these two support Pokemon can do. Amoonguss coming back in with a lot more health than it did thanks to that Regenerator ability. One of the reasons why Amoonguss is such a great support Pokemon. If it gets too heavily damaged, it can easily just switch out and switch back in. And we see exactly what it can do. You know, that Safeguard is going to prevent Amoonguss from Anthony's side from firing off Spores, so that's really good for Aglosa to set up that Safeguard. Even if you don't know if you need Safeguard just yet, you know, it just goes to show that what you can do 3 turns before might actually have a very good effect on your team and turnout. Salamon's going to come in right now, going to intimidate the Tyranitar again. A lot of switching back and forth right now. Of course, Amoonguss, you know, going to be content with that because it's going to heal back with that Regenerator. Amoonguss right now going to bypass that Confusion Check, going to fire off a Rage Powder, and Meowstic going to go for the Thunder Wave. So right now, Amoonguss has to go through both Confusion Check and a Paralysis Check. So kind of drawing similarities to what Thundurus could have done back in 2013. Go with a Crunch, going to do about 60%, maybe 65%, bringing Salamence all the way down to the yellow, dropping his defense, but not really matters too much because that Crunch next turn will knock it out anyways. At +2 speed, that Tyranitar is very scary right now. If Aglosa is really lucky, then Amoonguss will not be able to move this turn, and Aglosa will be able to easily fire off a Thunder Wave onto that Tyranitar and slow it down. Very smart moves right now by Aglosa to switch in and out his Salamence to continue firing off Intimidates onto that Tyranitar, who keeps desperately trying to set up, you know, a neutral attack Tyranitar with +2 speed is a lot better to face off against than a +2 Tyranitar. And a Rage Powder right now coming off onto the field, and Meowstic going to be stuck firing off Thunder Waves onto the Amoonguss, as the Crunch is going to be able to land onto the Meowstic and knock it out. So unfortunate right now for Aglosa that he loses his really main option of supporting his team with Meowstic, but Amoonguss is still there, and Amoonguss will still do a good amount of, you know, support for the team. So Aglosa right now has to choose what his best option is. Salamence can come in, easily intimidate that Tyranitar, bring it down to -1 attack and +2 speed. And we still haven't seen Aglosa's 4th Pokemon yet, but that will be the key Pokemon in this matchup right now. Salamence right now going to come in, going to fire off another Intimidate. Of course, Amoonguss is still paralyzed, still confused. And Amoonguss battles are really prevalent in this metagame. Amoonguss is such a great support Pokemon, as you can see. You know, both these Pokemon out in the field playing such an important role for both these players. Salamence, not sure exactly what Salamence is going to try to do here. Does have a fire move, I believe, to deal with that Amoonguss, as Amoonguss does decide to switch out, go into Gyarados and fire off Intimidate. Salamence, of course, it is a mixed Salamence, and it all depends on what Salamence decides to lock itself into, as Tyranitar going to protect itself this turn, not wanting to face off against anything. As Salamence does use Draco Meteor, going to land onto the Gyarados and do a good amount of damage, I believe, depending on how this Gyarados was trained, and brings it all the way down to about 60%. Very bulky Gyarados, as the Spore from Amoonguss is going to land onto the Tyranitar, protect for no effect, and the Safeguard ends, and now Safeguard is not going to be protecting Alex's team from any sort of status effect, so Amoonguss can easily come in and start sporing everything besides Amoonguss. Not much offense on Aglosa's side right now, which is really unfortunate. Gyarados, you know, does not enjoy facing off against that Amoonguss, but at the same time, Amoonguss, as long as it stays in, is a great way for Tyranitar to easily set up. And Kangaskhan going to come in for that Fallen Salamence. Salamence going to try to come in one more time and fire off another Intimidate, and also try to get back its special attack stat, as Tyranitar going to fire for Rock Slide, currently at a not, well, those Dragon Dance were neutralized by that Intimidate, as the Ice Fang from Amoonguss is going to come out and do a good amount of damage to that Amoonguss, and actually gets the freeze. Gets the freeze, and Amoonguss cannot move this turn. So after Agloza had a string of lucky freezes in Worlds, now gets a very unfortunate freeze, you know, possibly trying to Spore Tyranitar or Gyarados. Unfortunate right there. Right now, trying to see if this Kangaskhan has any way to deal with it, but DarkAssassin going to preserve that Gyarados to try to fire off more Intimidates and even try to draw away attacks from that Tyranitar, as Kangaskhan going to Mega Evolve this turn, going to go for a powerful attack, most likely try to either Power Punch that Tyranitar or fire off return onto that Amoonguss slot. Tyranitar going to be content with firing off a Rock Slide, going to pick up the knockout on that Amoonguss. In the next turn is going to come that Salamence, which is going to be important to fire off another Intimidate, as Kangaskhan does go for the return, targeting down that Amoonguss slot that was Gyarados, and going to do a massive amount of damage back to it because of that Rocky Helmet. So it's going to be Salamence and Kangaskhan versus Tyranitar and Amoonguss, along with Gyarados still in the back for DarkAssassin, and another Pokemon that has Hydreigon, who's still sleeping. Unfortunately for Agloza, is this Tyranitar is at +2, so it's going to be able to easily outspeed that Salamence. So we're seeing right now that Dragon Dances that have been neutralized because of the attack drops from Intimidate, you know, still paying off. Getting that Tyranitar over that Salamence is a huge deal, as Amoonguss is going to fire off a Rage Powder, and Tyranitar is still going to be able to outspeed that Salamence and fire off a Rock Slide. At -1, is it going to be enough to knock out the Salamence? Good amount of damage, and it actually does pick up the knockout, and it's going to be Kangaskhan versus 4. We all know that Kangaskhan is a very powerful Pokemon, but at the same time, I just don't think that Kangaskhan will be able to do and go and knock out 4 Pokemon. Tyranitar going to go for the crunch at -1, going to be able to probably pick up the knockout, and it doesn't. Kangaskhan going to go for the power punch, but at the same time, the Amoonguss is still ready to go and moving. And of course, Kangaskhan with that Rocky Helmet going to prevent any sort of attack from landing. So DarkAssassin, you know, pretty much has the game sealed away, as he does take it. And we are going to go to a Game 3 right now in the finals of this San Bruno Premier Challenge of DarkAssassin versus Evan Falco, National Champ versus Nugget Bridge Major Champ. Win in dominating fashion, and Agloza just simply could not pick up the pace, could not fire off any offense at all. So right now, you know, it's all about trying to get your offense going. Agloza couldn't get his offense going, had no safe switch-ins to that Kangaskhan, so that he could easily start power punching his own Pokemon, or if Agloza really wanted to, he could power punch the opposing Pokemon in time to start the sweep of Kangaskhan. Back to team preview right now, here in Game 3 of the finals of the San Bruno Premier Challenge. We have DarkAssassin on top with Manectric, Hydreigon, Gyarados, Tyranitar, Azumarill, Amoonguss. Off-screen, Alex Agloza with Amoonguss, Bisharp, Kangaskhan, Meowstic, Heatrotom, and Salamence. So here we are, Game 3, and we are ready to go. Both players ready to go, and right now both players are playing off for a couple booster pack prizes and 40 championship points. You know, that's the key thing right now that we're going for, 40 championship points. Again, special thanks to Gary for hosting this event right now, as we are currently in the finals. We got another Premier Challenge set up for you guys right after this, so stay tuned, guys. We'll be streaming that as well. Right now, DarkAssassin leading with Tyranitar and Hydreigon, the same leads that he had last time. And Meowstic and Salamence for a Gloza side. Gonna try to pick up the pace on the offense with a Gloza. Right now, Gloza really in good position. We know that the Tyranitar does have a Lum Berry, so that's going to be unfortunate. Meowstic will not be able to try to slow it down with a Thunder Wave this turn. We'll have to take 2 turns. And Hydreigon going to be threatened by that Salamence, but that Salamence, with that Choice Scarf, you know, going to be able to fire off powerful Dragon-type attacks on the Hydreigon. Amoonguss going to switch in right now for the Hydreigon. Does not want to stay in. And Meowstic going to set up and prepare for that. Prepare for that Amoonguss coming in. And Salamence showing off the Brick Break. Fighting type move that Salamence gets. Not too many Pokemon get it. And picking up the knockout on Tyranitar. That was Brick Break, right?
Yeah.
Showing off the Brick Break. I did. It was a Brick Break. So Salamence, of course, you know, with the Brick Break, just easily knocking out the Tyranitar, and Meowstic, again, with that safeguard, preventing Amoonguss from being able to Spore or anything, but at the same time right now that Amoonguss coming in, going to be able to Rage Powder away any sort of Brick Break onto that Hydreigon. But of course, I don't think Hydreigon wants to stay in on, or Salamence wants to stay in on Hydreigon when it's locked into Brick Break and facing off into Amoonguss, so wouldn't be surprised to see if Salamence switch. Amoonguss, going to be interesting to see what Amoonguss, or Meowstic decides to do this turn. Could easily fire off Thunder Waves if it really wanted to. You know, Amoonguss not possibly moving is kind of risky with the Rage Powder aspect of it. As Amoonguss does decide to go for the Rage Powder, going to draw away any attack this turn that is single target. And Meowstic going to go for the Swagger. Going to confuse that Amoonguss, possibly have it not move and not be able to fire off Rage Powders. And Salamence going to go for the Brick Break, going to hit that Amoonguss. Not going to do too much damage, not very effective. As Hydreigon going to go for the Dark Pulse. Going to hit the Meowstic, going to knock it out, so DarkAssassin easily going for the equalizing knockout and going 3-3 against each other right now. And a lot more offense going on in this game, you know, 2 quick knockouts, 1 on each side. Going to be interesting to see exactly what Alex is up to. I mean, he's still locked into Brick Break. Amoonguss going to come in. Gonna be able to provide some support for that Salamence. Salamence not sure if he wants to stay in or decides to